Hey guys, I'm Craig Slate,
And I'm Edward Todd,
and you're listening to
the Fresh Cred.
We have Colin Ager from San Antonio, Texas.
Yes, sir.
Colin, welcome to the Fresh Cred.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
So, how's things in San Antonio?
San Antonio is great. It's very hot right now. Got our second heat dome coming through, so I'm very happy to be in Monterey for a few days, enjoying some cooler weather.
Half the temperature, right?
Yeah, about half. And city's very excited about Wemby. So, good prospect in basketball. Hopefully that brings a lot of benefit to the city.
I'll definitely go to a game. I haven't been in years.
So, what's that?
I'm really not the person one should ask. I don't really
Number
watch
one
sports,
NBA draft
but
pick.
he's the number one draft pick. Very tall, apparently also
Is
athletic.
this
franchise
the
player.
one that whacked Britney Spears? Is that the same one?
His security detail, I think it turned out she whacked herself after kind of getting brushed aside. So
Come on.
that's what I read.
He's 7.
7'3.5.
Yeah. So
That's
next
his
Tim
height.
Duncan, next David Robinson, like that's the idea, right? So
Yeah.
he's a franchise player that hopefully we can hold on to for the next 20 years, 15 years.
Yeah. Well, so Colin, HEB,
Yes, sir.
right? What do you do for HEB?
I am the business development manager for dry table veg, bell peppers, onions, and garlic. So that would be any versions of those items, field, greenhouse, and organic. Been in that role since September, but been with HEB going on probably about 12 years now. Started as a sales clerk in produce there, and did that for about 6 years, actually in our central market division.
So you worked at the stores originally,
right.
right?
Yes,
Okay.
sir. And I've been in the procurement office for about 6 years now.
Which Central Market stores?
Started up in Austin,
Austin.
at the Westgate store there. Worked both of those stores a little bit up in Dallas, and eventually transferred down to San Antonio.
So San Antonio, has that always been home?
No, sir. I grew up in Maryland, East Coast, and I went to school up in New York City. And that was a big transition for me. I just grew up in a
So,
pretty
I'm sorry,
small
where'd you grow
town. In Maryland.
Maryland,
Frederick,
okay, all right.
So same school system from kindergarten through the end of high school, small graduating class, and then went to school in Manhattan for college. So that was a big exposure, a lot of different kinds of folks that I hadn't met, and got interested in all kinds of different things. And when I finished, decided I was going to move down to Austin, Texas, and play guitar in rock and roll bands. So I
That's
don't
an
think that was
awesome idea.
yeah, probably not the trajectory my parents expected or wanted.
I was wondering how you went from New York to Texas, but if
Yeah.
So was
you
your
need to let us
degree
know.
in music?
No, it wasn't. Ended up with a degree in environmental studies, actually.
Okay.
Started in more of a STEM field, but kind of got a little spooked about going into something so white collar immediately, and switched degrees to a program I thought was a little bit more interesting, but was also not one where in 2009 when I graduated, financial crisis was happening at the time. That was so easy to find employment.
Right.
So really that's how I stumbled into produce. I started working in Austin, Texas at this direct delivery produce startup. Worked there for about a year and transitioned to just a produce clerk at our central market stores there.
So you guys were doing direct delivery, like, internet wasn't quite as effective as it is today, so would you just call in, hey,
tough.
send me some
it's
bananas?
tough now, right? So it was even tougher back in 2009. They had like a basic website platform, really just delivering to Austin and Central Texas. That company was called Greenling Organic Delivery. CEO is Mason Arnold. He's still involved in
Oh
some
my God,
stuff
I
in
know
the
Mason.
business.
Yeah. So that was
Yeah.
one of his startups. So was that before
was.
Veggie Noodle?
Yes. Yeah.
I'll be damned. I did not know that.
So I
So
got my start. Yeah, I see him around trade shows every now and then. It's been a bit since I've connected with him. But
he's doing a dog food now. That's
Is he?
his latest thing. It's actually a pretty interesting startup he's working on. So
Yeah.
I'm curious to see where that goes.
is
Yeah,
the veggie
so-
noodle the same as the CC's noodle?
Yeah.
Okay.
It was
Yeah, I love
originally
those.
Veggie Noodles what it started with.
I think there was a naming problem or something that happened with that.
Oh, really?
But yeah, working as a sales clerk in produce just worked well with being a musician because I was gigging a lot, rehearsing a lot. So if I had a show, late Friday night and I needed to work Saturday, I could just work a closing shift and be in at 2, and I could accommodate both lifestyles and still make my rent at the end of the day. So, but it's a tough life to do that and try to make a serious, meaningful income as a musician. And a lot of friends that have still stuck with it, and music I still listen to now. But for myself, over time as I was growing up, priorities changed a little bit, and opportunities were materializing on the work end. And one foot kind of followed the other, and here we are today.
Wow.
Yeah, that's quite the journey. So Central Market, musician, guitarist, right? Or do you play
Yeah.
a couple of things?
I'm adequate at a couple other things, but I was good at guitar.
Yeah, yeah. So did you have long hair?
Oh, there were phases of that, for
Yeah.
sure. Yeah, there's some videos I wish I could pull off of YouTube.
I think if you
I
pay
gotta-
enough,
I
you
gotta
can do
go
that.
I'm gonna have to go look those up because I have not seen those. I might want to see the
Yeah.
long hair.
Hey, Mason, can we drop the links in the description?
Yeah, we'll put those in the show notes for
Yeah,
everybody
more
to go.
cleaned up these days.
So, well, Austin, what a great place, and for musicians and everything. I mean, it's a pretty live scene during that time too, right? I mean, it was pretty
Yeah.
active.
Yeah, it was, and I think it still is, but that city's growing and changing a lot of tech there now, and it's, I think it's a little harder to stretch that dollar in that city.
Oh my
It wasn't
God,
easy
yeah.
back then, but it would be even tougher to, be living paycheck to paycheck and try to, make sure you're feeding yourself as a musician in that town.
And South by Southwest was really starting to get traction then. I mean, I know
Yeah,
Southwest
I mean,
had been
it was
around
very
forever,
well
but
established. So I mean, honestly, as like a local gigging musician, that event is really not set up to promote that artist quite as much, unless you've already got some decent traction behind you.
So when that actually got started, it was actually, there was a lot of local, because they used to, in the original days of South, when it was just a musical deal,
Yeah,
people would literally have shows like in their backyard.
yeah. That was still happening a little bit in my day. Which
Oh, really? Okay,
Which
well-
basically means, because there's so many people in town for that it just takes 3 hours to get to some backyard gig where you're running off of some extension cords. I never found it too worthwhile, again, at the level of gigs that we were doing.
Yeah.
There's a lot of logistics that goes into the Southwest shows.
Now it's like a modern day World's Fair.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's crazy. Have you been, I mean, so you've been to South by,
Yeah, I mean, now it's really more in that kind of role as audience member and just supporter of the arts, and I like to catch up with the buddies that I used to play with. A lot of them are still very involved in the scene there, or have grown to, be past it and are on the road with some bigger names, and I'm very happy to see that success and like check in with them when I can.
so in San Antonio, how's the music scene there?
It's not one that I've explored as a gigging musician. It's a little bit more oriented towards like hip hop and heavy metal on like the local end of things. You see that promoted a little bit more than like rock and roll or country. But when I got in San Antonio, I mean, my favorite spot to see music's a very different sort of place than I used to play. It's called Jazz Texas in the Pearl, and it's like this kind of, speakeasy themed underground jazz club. Does big band jazz led by this guy Doc Watkins, and I've been there
been in the
half a
Pearl.
dozen times.
Several different restaurants, but I've never seen that.
It's under
So
the snack bar.
thus the speakeasy,
Yeah,
right?
it's under the snack bar, or food hall is what it's called, right? So
Huh.
under that, there's some steps that go down there,
I have to check it out.
and you got to book ahead. It's very difficult to get a seat if you haven't reserved a table. So
I have to check that
but
out.
I think it's the best way to spend an evening in San Antonio.
All right, so hobby-wise, music is the
You
primary
know-
one. You gotta, you
That was big back in my younger years. I'm married now, much more of a homebody. So cooking I like. Got a couple of rescue dogs. We've got a litter of 6 puppies at the house right
Oh
now
my
that we're
gosh.
working on. Yeah, working on finding
So did you
homes for
intend
those
to have the
guys.
puppies? Is you rescued the dog?
Kind of fell
and
into her
she
lap.
brought
yeah.
those? Yeah, she
Mama
brought the
kind
puppies.
of showed up in the neighborhood needing some help, and she was pregnant, and we were kind of the only ones
Mm.
in position to help right away. So they're about 6 weeks old right now, and super adorable until they all start pooping at the same time.
So are you going to be that guy at the local parking lot with a box out back and give
I'd
away
like
free
to do
pups?
a little bit more organized than that. We just got their first rounds of vaccines done, but we've got a couple placed. looking for 4 more. If maybe your audience can come through.
You know what? Like, here's an advertisement spot. You know, if you're looking to adopt a dog in San Antonio, be sure and we'll get you in touch with Colin. He's your guy for the kind of
Yeah.
dogs are they? Just straight up mutts, or they got a little
Yeah, so they all look a little different, but they're adorable, man. They're super cute.
So we're not making any money off of this deal. It sounds
No,
like. Darn
no.
it.
If I had a ranch, I'd keep them all. So yeah, kind of more domestic things like that. I bake bread. I like to cook. I like to grill.
So so obviously we're at an organic produce show.
Yeah.
Several of us are into cooking. I think you might be more than the average Joe. I know that you've kind of taken up bread as one of your things, but what do you like to? What is kind of your go-to dish? Let's go with that. What do you got a go-to dish?
I like the transformation of ingredients, of starting from scratch and ending up with something great. I don't know if I have like a go-to dish. I've really kind of focused on different things over time, and oftentimes my mind goes to like what's time consuming and impractical, like baking fresh bread in a household where it's just me and my wife. But I get like a nerdy kind of scientific kick off of that. And I remember, Craig, one time we were talking about kind of how I got into that, and I was saying, when I was a working musician, really didn't have much money, I'd pay my rent, and I'd say like, okay, my food budget's $300 for the month, so that's $10 a day, so what are my meals gonna be? What's my like meal plan? And envision it kind of like as a triangle, right? Where you've got like, food can taste good, can be inexpensive, and it can be good for you. And you can kind of easily get any 2 of those, right? But it's really hard to find
All three.
all 3. But for me, what I kind of realized was the secret to getting all 3 is that extra ingredient of time, right? So if you kind of learn to cook and learn how to shop, you can try to target that mix. So you got to eat every day, and you can make something as simple as chicken breast in a way that's dry and overcooked and unseasoned. But once you've done it 1,000 times and you just pay attention every time and just notice one little thing that was off and could have been better, like eventually my wife's like, why does this chicken taste so good? There's no real reason other than I've just done it a lot.
Yeah.
Just try to pay attention each time.
It's that time investment,
Yeah.
which
So-
most of us have more of one than the other. So
Yeah.
So what's the Colin triangle again?
Food can be inexpensive,
Inexpensive,
tastes good,
tastes good,
good for you.
good for you.
You can pick 2. 3 is hard.
We've got it. That's another one of those things we got to put in the show notes, because that's I'm telling you, we'll call it the Colin Food Decision Pyramid.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So you're from the East Coast originally.
Yes, sir.
Have you ever heard of Marry Me Chicken or Engagement Chicken?
I haven't.
Okay. So I thought it was an East Coast thing. It's a new dish we've been
What is
having
it?
at home. I'll send you the recipe.
It's like a recipe?
Well, I know, but
excellent.
won't you marry me
It's-
chicken?
You probably won't eat it. It's like a cream-based sauce.
yeah.
So for you, you probably
too many
would turn
carbs.
your nose up at it. But it has mushrooms, sun-dried tomatoes.
That's
I
good.
mean, the
That's
way
good stuff.
Callie
Those are
makes
nice.
it, she finishes it off in a cast iron skillet in the oven.
Yeah.
So it's just all like chicken. You can do breasts or thighs. I prefer thighs. It's really, really good. But apparently, it's an old recipe.
Okay. Not heard of that one.
Yeah.
Marry me chicken.
We'll put it in the
that.
description.
So the bread thing. So you're in the bread business now. You're. I mean,
At home
you're not.
anyway.
Yeah, you're not. Yeah.
But sourdough. Do you do sourdough?
Yeah. Yeah, because if I'm going to do something nerdy, I have to do like the most nerdy version of
Yeah.
it. So not only does it take 2 days to make the bread, you have a starter that you need to feed throughout the week.
You gotta do what?
You got to feed the starter, the sourdough starter. It's like a mother. You have to keep it alive.
All week.
Yeah. I mean, people.
Yeah.
There are sourdough
fermenting,
starters that have existed for more than 100 years.
What?
Yeah.
How
I
does
think
that
that's
work?
where
Hand them down.
Yeah, I think that's where like I don't know if it's probiotic per se, but there is.
No, it would be like the original definition of probiotic.
Right?
Yeah,
Okay.
It's just
That's what-
wild yeast. It's a culture of wild
I mean,
yeast.
I'm
It's just
familiar
water
with the
and
fact
flour
that you use a
that's it.
starter and all that, but I mean, I didn't realize. I don't think that people handed this thing down over years. How does that work? So, like, you make the
will
loaf
live
and
as
you
long
pull a
as you
piece
feed
off
it.
and you throw it in a. You
Right.
just-
Yeah, so you discard when you feed it, right? You usually remove about half, and then you replace that weight with fresh water and flour. So if you don't have it in the fridge, you need to do that like once or twice a day. I do a slightly lazier version where I'll feed it usually twice over the week,
What are you feeding it?
just with flour and water. and then I put it back in the fridge.
You sound so amazed. I mean, you should just make stuff up. You're like,
Okay.
I feed it dogs. Or I feed it stray dogs. It's like a chia pet.
So,
okay?
you know, I mean,
It's like a pet rock.
how often have we talked about feeding your bread? Huh? That's brand new to me. I'm
It's
sorry.
a thing.
Well, yeah. Again, I knew this.
good at
I
eating
knew about
sourdough.
this starter.
For the
and I've-
term, obviously, yeah.
Yeah,
It's
for
something
me-
that has to be maintained. It's simple, but the same culture has been maintained for
And that's the
family
part that's even
generations or at
I
certain
find that even
restaurants,
more
right?
amazing,
Yeah.
right? You know, so like yours, where did you get yours from?
So I've tried to start my own with limited success. I mean, honestly, it's not that hard to do, but I've struggled to have one lively enough when I've started it from scratch. So I actually ordered a live culture from King Arthur Flour, which is a premium flour brand. So they overnight it to you, and that one's been better than any that I've tried to start.
Just like
at
there's
home.
folks that do starter plants in the produce business, right? So starter yeast.
Yeah.
I'm not sure that's the same thing.
Craig's about to get out of the produce game.
Yeah, I'm getting into this. This
You'd
yeast
be eating more
deal.
bread, that's for sure. Well, we had
Yeah.
some last night, and I thought I made the comment, like, if you're gonna have bread, have sourdough. Like, I try not to have bread very often, but
Well, we didn't have sourdough last night.
yeah, we did.
You ordered that stinking cheese bread,
It was sourdough with cheese on it.
but you couldn't taste the sourdough.
Yeah, it
because of
wasn't
cheese.
it wasn't,
Yeah, I also do road cycling. That's my other hobby. And part of the reason I like that is because that can give me at least one day a week where I can eat whatever the hell I want.
Mm-hmm.
'Cause then if I ride 50 miles in the heat in San Antonio, you're going to burn 2,000
Oh,
calories
my God,
doing
yeah.
that. So
So what do you do?
that way I can eat some bread.
Oh, yeah.
How far is? Would you say 50 miles is a normal ride for you?
Yeah, a training ride, yeah. I just did my first century race in April. That was 103 miles.
Oof.
Yeah.
In Texas?
Yeah, that was actually in the hill country, so a little bit of elevation to it as well. So that was a good challenge.
How was it?
It was very difficult.
and dangerous. I've been on some of those roads. When I come
Yeah.
around a corner and a cyclist is coming.
Yeah, the courses generally are closed for
Yeah.
races like that.
For 100 miles, though? I guess maybe off and on.
Yeah. They
sections.
start closed and then stop,
Yeah.
and they open up.
I thought you were going to say there's one from Houston to College Station, but that's not quite 100 miles.
There wouldn't be a lot of elevation on that one.
It was
No,
5,400
to
feet
Bastrop,
for
I'm sorry.
For the one that I did.
What's that?
Yeah, 5,400 feet of elevation for my ride.
For your ride, yeah.
Yeah,
Wow.
which was a lot for me. It's for serious cyclists, that's not a big deal.
Yeah, it would be. I did, so there in Tucson where I'm at, if you ever want a city that is biking friendly,
Yeah.
I can't imagine a city being better than this outside of maybe over in Amsterdam where everybody rides a bike.
Right.
But yeah, more bike roads, everything. I mean, they've got this huge
Where's this?
trail around
Out.
Tucson.
Oh, in Tucson?
So all my neighbors, everybody, and in Tucson is a city where it is some of the oldest, well-educated, healthy people I've ever seen. Right? I mean, you're talking about 70-plus-year-old people that would blow away a lot of the guys and gals that I know in their
Go out
40s
there,
and
I'm gonna get
50s.
smoked. That's what you're saying.
Well, no. What I'm going to say is, I run a little bit, but
Yeah.
it's fairly flat. There's not a lot of elevation. 3 miles, whatever, is kind of my normal run. So a couple of guys in the neighborhood who are all plus 70, they've been, hey, you should join us for a morning ride one time. I was like, sure. I've got a mountain bike. And so it does have gears, but it's not really. So I get, so these guys, they've all got their road bikes. And it's a 24-mile casual ride. So it's
I wish
not
you
a
would
big
have told
deal.
me. I would have told you not to go.
Well, I did. I resisted for a while, but finally I said, you know what, guys, I want to get up and go with you one day. So I had got me a thing for my phone to strap on my handlebars, and I had a water bottle
Came
somehow
prepared,
rigged
yeah.
up on. And man, I mean, we weren't 2 minutes into the ride, and I bounced my phone off on the ground.
You need to stock up on gears, is what you needed to do.
Well, I have gears on the
No,
bike.
but not enough.
Yeah,
not
but-
enough gears, and not the right
The
ones.
point being is, these guys didn't slow down. Now we
Yeah.
weren't riding super fast, but it seemed for a guy that doesn't ride, it was 24 miles. I knocked my phone off. I dropped my water bottle at one point. Whatever. These guys never stopped,
Yeah.
except for a halfway point. There's a stopping point. We stopped, and
Throw
talked and
up.
went back up. And that was the one and only ride I went with those guys
So they
because
scared you straight.
they did. I decided, you know
But if
what?
you got the right bike, you might be able to keep up.
Like now.
Yeah, even mountain bikes to mountain bikes. I mean, there's a difference between.
I just don't
You
know.
know.
Yeah, I'm just not sure. At least with that crew, I'm not the right guy. But just the whole point, these guys are not, they're not youngster, but super freaking healthy.
I mean, that's really why I do it. It's the process more than it is the race. I'm not going to be competitive in any of these races. It was just trying to finish it.
Oh, yeah.
But to even be in a level of fitness that you can approach doing a 100-mile bike race with a little bit of elevation, it means you need a training plan, you know, and it's that kind of habit I hope to carry into, you know, later age and stay young
Yeah.
for longer.
Yeah, it's
If you
certainly a
haven't seen
sport.
it yet, Eco Challenge has been around for a long time, but they actually televised it on Netflix, 10 episodes, and Bear Grylls is the host.
Yeah, I did see that. Those are
Okay,
kinda
so
neat.
we just finished
Yeah.
the 9th or 10th episode, the last one. It is wild. I mean, it's a 10-day race in the jungle in Fiji, and they're doing kayaking, paddleboarding, hiking, running.
You should aspire to compete in one of those.
If you go with me, yeah.
I might do that.
Okay.
I
You
know
can get some sponsors?
he's really good with a canoe.
He's making fun because I kayaked 21 miles of the Rio Grande through Big Bend and almost drowned
I
like
don't know
4
if it was
times.
actually, I don't know if it was
That's a
actually
lot. It was a lot in
kayaking
the
what he
canoe or
did.
kayak.
It wasn't so much the
He
kayaking
swam.
part; it
He
was the
swam the
flipping
Rio
over
Grande.
part.
Yeah.
That's the scary stuff.
Yeah,
I can
well,
handle
that
it.
makes it harder.
Yeah, it's draining when you're fighting for your life.
Yeah.
3 or 4 times. Yeah. Next time I'll need better
Don't go
equipment.
canoeing with, or
We were on a
So
sit-on
maybe we could be an
kayak.
Eco Challenge team. Is that what you're getting at?
Well, Craig will be the spare. But yeah, I was on a sit-on kayak, and I realized that's not the right kayak for the river.
So that's what he was telling me before he went on the trip. He's like, hey, I'm going kayaking with a friend of ours, Hanaro. And he's like, yeah, we're going kayaking. I was like, do you kayak? And he's like, no, I never have. I was like, I was like, wow. I said,
I didn't say I never have. I said I'm just not like an avid kayaker. I mean, I took it out on the lake at home and around the neighborhood.
well, and I'm
lakes.
thinking he's getting in one of those dudes that you
Sit in.
yeah,
There's
harness
sit in
around, right?
versus
There's
sit
people
on.
I said, do you know how to roll? And I said, I don't think you need to know how to roll or anything. I go, all right. But thank God he wasn't one of the ones that was strapped in, or we wouldn't be here today. Because sounds like the waters were a little rough. But any triathlons or anything in your future? Or is it strictly biking?
No, I like the cycling. I think with any kind of fitness, you got to find what you like to do and what doesn't seem like a chore. I really can't swim very well. I would need to take lessons. And when it comes to running or cycling, I would just much rather cycle. So, and it's certainly enough calorie burn and borderline on too much of a time investment that adding more to that isn't of interest to me.
Yeah, so you said 50 miles is your training run. Are you doing that
Yeah.
twice a week, 3 times a week? What do you
I
do?
mean, I try to do like one long ride a week, basically.
Okay.
And then if I can get in 1 or 2 shorter ones on a weekday, that'd be good. So, and it depends if I'm just doing it for general fitness or if I have an event coming up for how far I'm going.
You know, so, and we kind of ask everybody all this, right? So a lot of the people we talk to have some sort of an exercise regimen or whatever. They do something, you know, and a lot of us are kind of the same way, right? It's like, I do this so I can eat bread, or I do this so, in my case, it's always I do this so I can drink old fashions. But the question is, you know, for you, what do you find more beneficial, or do you have a food regimen? Do you have is food a bigger impact on your health, or is it the
I
exercise?
wouldn't say I have a food regimen, but you know, I'm interested in cooking, and I think, you know, the writer, I think it was Mark Bittman. I like a lot of the advice he's given, and he said, like, you can eat all the junk food you want as long as you make it yourself, right? Because most junk food's like a pain in the ass. It
Yeah.
takes like an industrial commercial operation to be spitting out French fries for you. Like, try making French fries at home. It's going to take you 2 hours. You're not going to do it.
Ice cream. Make ice cream.
So not by any means that my diet is perfect, but if you start with a baseline of like most of the food that you're eating, you're making, the more you're shopping in produce and the protein alley, I think you're putting better things into your system. I've always been relatively thin, so I'm lucky in that way. But I'm 35 now. You know, your bodies do change as you get older, and I was getting to a point of noticing, like, hey, like if I want to stay thin, I need to do more than I've been doing. So to get me ready for that first race that I did, I also hired a personal trainer. I see him twice a week in the mornings at 6, and he gives me a schedule to do outside of that, which I totally ignore when I'm doing these week-long produce shows.
Yeah.
But yeah, I like to eat, and while I can still be pretty physically active, I would rather just challenge myself to burn a little bit more calories to, enjoy that kind of cheat meal every now and then. But I did try recently kind of counting some calories and some macros, which I'm certainly not obsessive about, but even like to spend a week or two doing that to realize how quickly your calorie count can increase in a day. Like just having that knowledge sometimes often helps me make better choices of drinking more water and
Yeah.
and ordering the chicken instead of the steak.
Are you into intermittent fasting or anything like that?
I don't do it explicitly, although I usually never eat breakfast. So
Not like this guy. What do you do, 2-3 days?
I haven't done that, so I was on a deal where I haven't done it this year, where I stopped, usually in June, and I would do from Sunday to Thursday. I did that once a year, and then typically I was kind of on a regimen where I would do a 48-hour to occasionally, as much as 72, but I would usually do a long fast. Haven't really been on that. I pretty much eat once a day. That's pretty much what I do. I highly recommend, and anybody that listens to this, I mean, it's a known deal. It is, and I've got friends that aren't the healthiest eaters but have tried it. If you can do it, and if you can psychologically get to it, it is by far one of the best ways to change your health scores,
Yeah.
change your metrics.
Are you talking about fasting?
Yes, fasting. Yeah.
Or the eating once a day?
Well,
Or intermittent, or long term?
I don't know what the official terminology, but eating
if you
once a
only
day.
let yourself eat one large meal a day, you're only going to take in so many
calories,
right?
exactly.
Like even on days where I do bike, my bike training, it's like a lot of calorie burn. Your baseline is going to be about 2,000 calories. My bike ride could be 2,000 to 3,000 calories, but I'm not eating 5,000 calories that day. It's just I'm tired and I'm not I'm hungry after that, right? I had large meals, but I might eat 3,000 or 4,000 calories that day. So you're only going to take in so much in any one sitting. So I think just by default, you're going to be probably more normal to where like a human kind of evolved to be.
But yeah, and when I think there's a couple of things in one, I mean, I do think calorie restriction is relevant for your health. Again, the scores prove it out. That's what I always tell people is, look, when I got started on trying to do this health journey, I really didn't know I needed to lose weight till the weight fell up. That wasn't super big, but I obviously had weight to lose because I lost it. But what was more important to me was going to the doctor and saying, oh yeah, hey, your triglycerides are as good as they've ever been, and hey, this is better, and your blood work is this, and da-da-da-da. And it is a great way to get your body in a healthy way, but I do think it's the calorie restriction. I do think it's your body being more like what it was built to. We weren't built to eat all day.
Yeah. Yeah, it's another thing that author Mark Bittman, I heard him talking about on a podcast, is like there's a lot of experiences and feelings humans have that we don't feel need to be addressed immediately. But for some reason, like food, just because of the way our society works and that there's so many calories available easily, that anytime we are hungry, we just think, oh, okay, I need to deal with that.
Yeah.
But like really, you don't. You can just have an awareness of like, okay, I'll need to eat eventually here, and focus your mind on some other things and just not address it immediately. If you can wait an hour or two, it can just help you get in that mindset of like calorie restriction or intermittent fasting.
Yeah.
I went from somebody who thought they couldn't function if they didn't eat breakfast to now I feel like I function better on an empty stomach, like at least, cognitively.
Yeah.
I feel like I'm performing better. And once I do eat, that's when I get that sluggish, depending on what I'm eating, what I break a fast with, whether it's protein and complex carbs or not. If it's not, typically I'll get sluggish. And
Yeah.
then it's,
My only recommendation would be to not book like an 11:30 a.m. business meeting with me, because that's when I start to get a little pouty.
That would be the time to stay away. All right.
Yeah. My
Duly-
mind PO is going another direction.
hungry.
Duly noted. Well, look, it's been good. I mean, time on these interviews always flies by. There's a lot of stuff we didn't get to. I wanted to talk a little bit about the podcast me and you had talked about and the music pod. So, like so many of these things, hopefully we'll be able to have you come back and we can kind of dig
Yeah.
into
Hit a part two.
Yeah, a part two.
We can talk about produce a little bit.
Yeah,
There's always that.
Yeah, there is that. As the produce, and we will certainly bring some of that up. And here at the show, hopefully you're getting a lot of exposure here from the organic show. And
Yeah. There's a lot of good suppliers here, very heavily attended out there. So
Yeah.
I'm going to go straight back out to the floor after this and see what everyone else has.
So no, appreciate you giving us the time today,
Thank
Colin.
you.
Thank you very much
Thanks for
for
being here.
that.